Hi there! Before we begin, I just want to let you know that I just finished recording another video about The Princess Bride that's a sort of companion piece, follow-up to this one, where this one we're talking more about the book and comparing it to the movie. The other video is going to be a deeper exploration of the movie, but also still talking about the book. So go check that out when you're done with this one, or just, skip this one, go to that. Whatever, it's your choice. Hi friends, I'm Sarah Jo Strawberry, and I love the 1987 romantic-y comedy classic, The Princess Bride. This is a video I have been wanting to do for a long time, since before I started this channel. The notes I'm working off of are actually over 5 years old. I went in and revamped them for recording this video. I had machinations for a different YouTube channel a decade ago that I was working on and never started. This isn't even actually my first YouTube channel. I had one back in high school, but we're not going to talk about that.
First I'm going to be using this.
So I'd been wanting to go back to these notes and make this video for this channel because I thought it was fun, and I love The Princess Bride. Just want to talk about it. Princess Bride, I can't remember the first time I saw it because it was just a movie I grew up with when I was 2-3 years old and could first grasp the concept of having a favorite movie. It was The Princess Bride, Sleeping Beauty, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which I know, a 2-3-year-old watching Who Framed Roger Rabbit, I don't know why I was allowed to watch it, but I did, and I loved it, and it's still one of my, all three of those are still, some of my all-time favorite movies. I actually also once won a Princess Bride fan contest. Sorry, just to further impress upon you how much I love this movie. It's one of those movies that's so fun to quote, and just a real feel-good film. So I decided, again, already thinking of doing this video, but with the recent tragic loss of Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle Singer Reiner, and of course Rob Reiner is the director of The Princess Bride. I was torn about, is it too soon? Should I wait? But want to do this around Valentine's Day because it's a fun romantic movie, but also to bring some light to a tragedy and just celebrate Rob Reiner's legacy and this, in my opinion, masterpiece of a film that he brought to the world. The Princess Bride is a 1973 romantic fantasy novel by William Goldman, and in many ways pretty close to the movie, or what we see in the movie. It's a pretty faithful adaptation. The book is framed as a translation retelling of a book by S. Morgan Stern, who was also mentioned in the movie. William Goldman becomes a bit of a character himself in the book, and we get these interludes from him explaining certain things in the history of the country of Florin, where The Princess Bride is set, this imaginary country. Just hinting at this whole fun history and lore that he created for this story, but then presenting it as something written by someone else, and he's just, presenting an abridged version of it. It's a really interesting writing approach. It's I definitely, if you love The Princess Bride and haven't read the book, read it, but if you're someone who enjoys writing, I recommend it just to check out a very different approach to storytelling. So when it came to adapting it to the screen, who better to adapt this novel to a screenplay? What screenwriter would be better at the job than William Goldman? So William Goldman actually had a history of adapting novels to film. He's as much a screenwriter as a novelist, maybe more so a screenwriter. And you look at his credits, I actually recently rewatched the original Stepford Wives movie, and he was the screenwriter for that. He adapted the novel to the screen. So of course, when it came to a film adaptation of his own novel, why not have him adapt it to the screen? So because of that, we don't lose too much of the novel, it's pretty faithful. One, I think, like, key difference is, like, when I was going back through the book to refamiliarize myself, that Prince Humperdinck his physical description is so different. Like, it's not Chris Sarandon, but nonetheless, it's very well done. And also the framing, the one thing I think is interesting that he did, the framing of the movie, instead of the book's framing of William Goldman as a character adapting or abridging a story, is the grandfather telling the story to his grandson serves as that framing device instead, which is, I think, one of the most, I guess, famous things about the movie, is that you expect it to be this fantasy, but it starts in the bedroom of a young boy in presumably the Chicago suburbs. So despite how faithful this adaptation is, there are some details, some background about the characters that is left out, understandably. So even though this is a very faithful adaptation, there are a couple details, some like background info on characters, just little things that happen in between scenes that are left out of the movie, but are interesting to explore, and things that I've kind of questioned, thought about when watching the movie before ever reading the book, that the book answered for me. So today, I'm going to go through 9 questions that I had that were answered by the book, and maybe these are questions you've had, and maybe you have other questions, and if you do, if I don't bring them up, leave them in the comments. So with that, let us begin. So these questions, I'm going to go chronologically through the movie, kind of beat by beat, what questions would come up. So my first question is, why was Buttercup given the title of princess before marrying Prince Humperdinck?
On that sundown, I shall marry a lady who was once a commoner like yourselves. But perhaps you will not find her common now. Would you like to meet her? My people, the Princess Buttercup.
I'm American. My understanding of how royalty works is pretty limited, but from what I know, a title of princess would be bestowed, or prince, would be bestowed upon someone upon marriage, not prior to. And the book explains why this happened. And it's in one of Goldman's interludes explaining Morgenstern's history of Florin. Would you believe that in the original Morgenstern, this is the longest single chapter in the book? 15 pages about how Humperdinck can't marry a common subject, so they fight and argue with the nobles, and finally make Buttercup Princess of Hammersmith, which was this little lump of land attached to the rear of King Lotheron's holdings. Question number 2. How long did Vicini, Fezzik, and Inigo Montoya know each other?
We are but poor, lost circus performers. Is there a village nearby?
There is nothing nearby. Not for miles.
Then there will be no one to hear you scream.
So it would seem that they have a bit of history. They don't seem to know each other terribly well, but have known each other long enough. And the book explains this history of, this isn't said in the movie, but they are referred to as the Sicilian crowd. In dark places, their name whipped sharper than fear. Everyone had needs that were hard to fulfill. The Sicilian crowd, 2 was company, 3 a crowd even then, became more and more famous and more rich. Nothing was beyond or beneath them. Inigo's blade was flashing again, more than ever like lightning. The Turk's strength grew more prodigious with the months. From that last line of that little snippet, we know it's not a super definitive answer, but we know that it is a period of months. So less than a year, but still a decent amount of time. Number 3. How did Inigo Montoya become a drunkard, or realistically an alcoholic?
When I found you, you were so slobbering drunk you couldn't buy brandy!
The book later on goes into it more specifically, and we kind of get a sense of this in the movie, that the loss of his father was just so too great of a burden for Inigo to bear. You know, his entire mission is to avenge his father's death, his murder at the hands of the six-fingered man. Inigo, at the age of 27, began having a few extra glasses of wine at night to help him get to sleep. At 28, he was having a few extra glasses to help him digest his lunch. At 29, the wine was essential to wake him up in the morning. So we see this steady progression of his alcoholism. You know, it's presented in a very interesting way of he needed it to help him fall asleep, and then, you know, eventually he can't wake up in the morning because he's so dependent on the alcohol. It's interesting how it's written in a way that I don't know from personal experience, but from what I know, I think kind of mimics the progression of alcoholism of, oh, I just, you need this little bit to fall asleep. Oh, I need this little bit to do this. I need a little bit to do that. So, but, you know, you do get to kind of explore the psychology of Inigo more in the book, but we do see it pretty plainly in the movie. Question number 4. What was Fezzik's prior career, and how did he wind up unemployed in Greenland?
And you! Friendless, brainless, helpless, hopeless! Do you want me to send you back to where you were? Unemployed in Greenland?
If it's not obvious, and it probably will become more so as you see which characters my questions are centered around, Fezzik and Inigo are my absolute favorite characters in this movie, in the book. So yeah, of course, I wondered, well, what was that history? You know, right when Vicini says this. That week, the circus fired him. The crowds were booing them now too, and the fat lady threatened to walk out, and the little people were fuming, and that was it for Fezzik. This was in the middle of Greenland, so now we know. Prior, Fezzik was working as part of a circus, not mentioned in this quote, but I'm pretty sure he was the strong man of the circus, and he just like has a history, and we'll talk about this more in a moment, of he was just a sweet guy, but just people were scared of him because he was big and strong and treated him horribly, which just makes me love the character more. But an interesting kind of comparison and contrast to Andre the Giant himself. I think he just is a fascinating figure. Highly recommend I think it's called I Am Andre? No. I can't remember what it's called, but there's an Andre the Giant HBO documentary that's, you know, very good. I've watched it a few times. Also, just a quick fun fact. So, as you see here, I have Carrie Elway's book, As You Wish, which is about the making of The Princess Bride. And I haven't read it in a while. I want to read it again, because I remember it was a fun read. But the one thing I remember, like one detail from the set that I remember being brought up, is that Andre the Giant had a hibachi grill and hibachi chef in his hotel room in England, I think, when they were filming, because he was just like, I like hibachi, so, well, you know, and would just invite like the cast and crew to his room, like, we're gonna have hibachi for dinner, and I love that, and I wish I could have been there, because I love hibachi. Question number 5. Why do Fezzik and Inigo love to rhyme?
Probably he means no harm.
He's very, very short on charm.
You have a great gift for rhyme.
Yes. Some of the time.
Of course, if you've seen the movie, I think everyone knows. Even if you haven't seen the movie, you probably know the "Anybody want a peanut?" Like in I Love You, Man. That's the movie.
Took Andre the Giant a barrel of beer to get drunk, sometimes 2.
Hello, pretty lady. Anybody want a peanut?
But yeah, there's this whole thing between Fezzik and Inigo where one of them will say something and the other will finish the rhyme. Usually it's Inigo says something, Fezzik completes the rhyme. And in the book, we learned that it's Fezzik who really enjoys the rhyming, and Inigo just, you know, took to him and was like, okay, I get it. I speak your language. Let's do this rhyming thing. I love their friendship. I love that Fezzik was this misunderstood guy, and then Inigo, who is also kind of misunderstood and struggling, they find each other, become friends, and just really support and love each other. But Anyway, so here's the history of really Fezzik's love for rhyming. "Bully, bully," they taunted Fezzik during morning yogurt break. "I'm not," Fezzik would say out loud. To himself, he would go, "Woolly, woolly." He would never dare to consider himself a poet, because he wasn't anything like that. He just loved rhymes. Anything you said out loud, he rhymed it inside. Sometimes the rhymes made sense, sometimes they didn't. Fezzik never cared much about sense. All that ever mattered was the sound. Question number 6, and this is a two-part answer. What happened to Inigo and Fezzik following their respective encounters with the Man in Black? So in the movie, we see that the Sicilian crowd gets split up because they are being followed by the Man in Black, who is the Dread Pirate Roberts, who is actually Wesley, and are trying to escape him. So first, Inigo stays behind as Fezzik and Vicini run ahead with Buttercup and tries to fight the Man in Black during the Battle of Skill, and Inigo is bested.
Kill me quickly. I would soon destroy a stained glass window as an artist like yourself. However, since I can't have you following me either.
And left unconscious as the Man in Black moves on. He then encounters Fezzik as Vicini and Buttercup go ahead for the Battle of Strength, where, again, the Man in Black, Dread Pirate Roberts, Wesley, bests Fezzik, leaves him unconscious.
I do not envy you the headache you will have when you awake. But in the meantime, rest well and dream of large women.
And then there's the Battle of Wits with Vicini, where Vicini ends up dead, and Wesley gets Buttercup back, and, there's their reunion. So, following the Battle of Skill, when Inigo regained consciousness, it was still night on the cliffs of Insanity. His arms were tied together around a tree. Back to the beginning and wait for Vicini. Then regroup, replan, start again. And to be fair, later on when we catch back up with Inigo in the movie, he does also say, albeit drunkenly, so it's a bit tricky to pick up, that he went back to the beginning, and he says, "This is where we got the job, so this is the beginning."
I am waiting for you, Vicini. You told me to go back to the beginning. So I have.
Study Vicini. When the job went wrong, you went back to the beginning. Well, this is where we got the job. So it's the beginning.
And then when Fezzik regains consciousness following the Battle of Strength, Fezzik had no idea how long he was unconscious. He only knew, as he staggered to his feet on the mountain path, that his throat was very sore where the Man in Black had strangled him. Fezzik ran off into the night after the Sicilian. Vicini was napping when he got there. He had been drinking wine and dozed off. Fezzik dropped to his knees and put his hands in prayer position. "Vicini, I'm sorry," he began. Vicini napped on. Fezzik shook him gently. Vicini did not wake. Not so gently this time. Nothing. "Oh, I see. You're dead," Fezzik said. And that cracks me up. I do wish we could have seen that moment in the movie, because that's just really funny to see him like, "Hello, wake up. Oh, you're dead." Question number 7. How did Fezzik end up joining the Brute Squad?
Beat it, or I'll call the Brute Squad.
I'm on the Brute Squad.
You are the Brute Squad.
So in the scene when we meet back up with Inigo and he's drunk and in Florence City or nearby,
the Thieves' Forest,
the Brute Squad is clearing the place out because there is extra security ahead of Humperdinck and Buttercup's wedding. And we see, Fezzik, we see is part of the Brute Squad. That's kind of what he ended up doing after he found Vicini dead and realized, okay, well, this job's over, I guess. Time to figure something else out. And in the book, we learn how he came to be part of the Brute Squad, kind of what happened in between when we see him last and meet up with him again as well. Well, I spent some time in a fishing village, and then I wandered a bit. And I remembered Buttercup when I carried her up the cliffs of Insanity. I thought it might be nice to see her wedding celebrations, so I came here, but my money was gone. And then they were forming a Brute Squad and needed giants. I've been a Brute First Class all this past week. Question number 8. what is the significance of the 4 white horses?
Here you go. I set the prince's table, and there they were, 4 white horses. And I thought, there are 4 of us. If we ever find a lady. Hello, lady.
At the end of the movie, when Buttercup is rescued and she and Wesley are finally able to run off together with the help of Inigo and Fezzik, Fezzik finds 4 white horses in Prince Humperdinck's stables, and they ride off on them as part of their escape. And, you know, he specifically says, I found these 4 white horses. It's a bit of a throwaway line, but I always thought it was a kind of an interesting, just specific detail to include, and wondered, what is the significance of this? And didn't think about it until reading the book, and it's brought up. Of all his accomplishments, none pleased the prince as did these horses. Some day he would have an army of them, but getting the bloodlines perfect was a slow business. He now had 4 whites, and they were identical. Snowy, tireless giants, 20 hands high. On flat land, nothing could catch them. And even on hills and rocky terrain, there was nothing short of Araby close to their equal. Just kind of an interesting thing about how, especially royalty and leaders, have this horse obsession, and especially with horse breeding. It always just reads as like, I don't know, it just feels like a weird eugenics thing. But I don't know, I'm poor, I can't relate. And the 9th and final question isn't about a particular specific point in the story. It's about the timeline overall, which is, what is the flow of time in the story? In the movie, it's mentioned twice that 5 years have passed between when Wesley died and the announcement of Buttercup and Humperdinck's engagement. However, very different in the book, and actually a shorter time frame. So according to the book, it's a couple of months that pass between Wesley leaving and his death. Buttercup and Humperdinck are engaged a month after Buttercup finds out Wesley has died, and 3 years pass between Wesley's disappearance, between when Wesley leaves and his reappearance. And the reason we know this, in the book, it says that when Wesley leaves, Buttercup is 18 and she is 21 when she becomes engaged to Humperdinck. Or I'm sorry, not when she becomes engaged to Humperdinck, when Wesley reappears. And then 3 months pass between Wesley's reappearance and, you know, he and Buttercup in the fire swamp and the wedding and the end of the story. So those are 9 questions that I had about The Princess Bride when watching the movies that I had answered while reading the book. I definitely, again, recommend the book, highly recommend the book, especially if you, like me, love Fezzik and Inigo Montoya. There is a lot of explanation of their backstories and their thinking, their perspectives of everything. That just makes the story a lot more fun. You know, there's like a whole kind of the middle section of the movie where those characters are missing, and you don't feel that as much in the book. Not that it takes away from the movie, obviously. Inigo Montoya in particular is one of the like most beloved movie characters ever. Like, who hasn't heard, even if you haven't seen the movie, again, you know, my name is Inigo Montoya, you killed my father, prepare to die.
My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
That's iconic, you know? Thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing if you want to see more like this. Leave a comment. Like I said before, if you have some questions about The Princess Bride, that, you know, things about the different characters that the movie doesn't explain, maybe the book does, let me know, and maybe I can answer them, or read the book for yourself. Reading is fun, demental. And yeah, oh, and there's all these things now that it's like the standard to say on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and now hype. Which I don't even fully understand how that works. I don't even know if the hype button is going to show up under my video. But if it does, hype the video if you feel like it deserves some hype. You know, Also, just because I'm curious, like, how that works. So if you could just do me that favor, hype the video so then I can figure out what the heck it really means. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Au revoir. Adios. Sayonara. Farewell. Goodbye. Are you working? Are you working? Microphone, microphone. I can't talk today. What's wrong with me? I'm having fun today. I'm having fun with this video.